The following hedge fund video has been brought to you by the HFG. The hedge fund group provides premium service, along with online training and certification for hedge funds, called the Certified Hedge Fund Professional, also known as the CHP designation.
Hello, this is Richard Wilson, and today we're going to talk about institutionalization and specifically the importance of transparency, what that means, and how to really get some transparent things in place for your hedge fund business. So first off, transparency is basically operating and investing within your hedge fund portfolio in a way that investors have almost 100% see-through of your decision-making processes, your research, your risk management, your investment process, and even your team and what they're doing every day. So let's give some examples here of what that could really mean. First is risk reporting. Lots of hedge funds have T+2 or a day or two delayed risk reporting. Some have same-day position risk reporting. Some only do monthly or quarterly detailed risk reports. It's important that they're done consistently. Usually the more often the better. Usually you can enable them with technology so that they're done faster and with less individual manual levels of effort. And on a consistent basis, it's good to send this to your investors proactively, maybe once a month, once a quarter at least. It's being sent to them so they know that you know what your risk positions are at all times. And one thing that goes along with that is that if you get in the habit of acting in the right ways, in terms of operating in the right ways, operating about looking at intraday risk positions, then that's something you can produce for an investor. And the largest of investors are the ones that are going to do the most checks on how your business is ran. And one of their tests might be, if they ask for a risk report, how many days does it take for you to produce that? Does it take a month? Do you say, we'll give it to you next quarter? What's your response? And if you can provide it back to them in an hour, the same day, the next morning, that's a world of difference from it taking 2 weeks for a fund that's never had to do that before or that doesn't have the technology in place to produce that same report. So risk reporting is a good example of being transparent. Other transparency could be the very thorough process through which you hire somebody. Everybody knows that pedigree is one of the most important things for attracting new investors, but how many hedge funds, when they go and do a due diligence call, talk about not only their investment process, but their pedigree investment process? How do they hire very talented, experienced professionals? How do they attract more talent per dollar spent than any of their competitors? Is it through equity sharing? Is it through vested benefits? Is it through vested profit sharing? Is it through building a strategic board and then slowly hiring on some of those professionals? I think showing how your business as a hedge fund is advanced enough that you've thought through these things and you have a documented, somewhat rigid process for making sure that you get grade A talent for your team is something that the biggest institutional investors will really appreciate, because the more money they have to invest, the larger their organization potentially is, and they might have similar systems in place, or maybe they realize they should have such systems in place and they'll respect you for having it already in place. So I think that that's another good example of something transparent that you can share. Another thing that we run across most often with emerging hedge fund managers is that they believe that they need to be so secretive they cannot even share their investment process. And there's a study that came out in 2007 that showed that 86% of institutional investors will not invest in something unless they understand the investment and the investment process behind it. And so I think that it's very important that you're as transparent as possible with your investment process. Maybe your investment process has 4 steps, and maybe each of those 4 steps has 5 parts. So maybe what you do is you explain the 4 steps, and you provide a summary of those 5 parts. So you provide some detail, but not so much that somebody could copy every little step of your investment process. Or if your magic sauce is really your research and the inputs into your research system, maybe you share all 20 points of that research, of that investment process. And that way you're more transparent to your competitors, your investors understand exactly all of the different checks you're doing and processes you're following consistently. And that can come off stronger than somebody who has 2% a year performance better than yours, or even a longer track record, but they're not as transparent. So that's another example. Being very transparent on your investment process is another great practical something you can take away today and start using it example of how to be more transparent in how you operate. So in every case within your business, if you look at the 18 or the 12 business functions or strong points about your firm, and look at each one and how transparent you are, how transparent your competitors are, and how far you could push that line of transparency, I think you'll be rewarded for being proactively very transparent. I agree there may be an area or two where you want to be less than 100% transparent, or possibly one or two of your reports may only go to investors who have passed certain criteria of being a very highly interested or qualified investor. But in most cases, it's just going to benefit you to be more transparent than most or all of your competitors, if possible, within every area of your business. On some level now, after the Madoff scam, there is actually a sense of distrust. At some level, nobody trusts anybody. There's always friends in the business that help smooth things along and get things done quicker, but then when it moves up the chain of command, there's almost always more regimented controls now to have everything checked, due diligence done, and things compared and revisited more frequently. So it's important to be transparent, because I don't see that trend reversing, and you'll actually make everything smoother for yourself if you're just transparent up front. There'll be less questions and less scrambling to come up with answers and reports down the road when those questions do come up. So thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time.